Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, the Phillies had two pitchers, a starter in Taijuan Walker and a relief pitcher in Matt Strahm. And an interesting tidbit from Jayson Stark on his podcast we'll discuss on today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Been talking Phillies baseball for years over on 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. Happy to be here with you as your host of Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, the Odyssey app, all that good stuff. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, everything you do there to keep locked in on Locked On Phillies. Now, today, and apologize for the delay, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, like I tweeted out, where I recorded this podcast like 3 times yesterday, and the system we used to record just wouldn't save it. So a bit of a frustrating day, and I wanted to make sure I still got this content up for you. So we're back today, trying again. Hopefully, if you're hearing this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, it means it actually recorded today. So that is a good thing. Now, the Phillies, of course, we know we had already seen them sign Trey Turner to an 11-year, $300 million deal. Insane. But now you're looking at a situation where they add to the starting rotation and the bullpen. And this is all stuff that happened earlier this week. So not exactly breaking news, but I want to give you my thoughts. First, the Taijuan Walker signing. 4 years, $72 million, an annual value of about $18 million. So yeah, that's really, really good work by Dave Dombrowski and the Philadelphia Phillies front office to bring in a guy to basically replace what Zach Eflin was at the start of last year. Now, I know Zach Eflin ended the year in the bullpen, but he was supposed to be your fourth starter behind Ranger Suarez, Aaron Nola, and Zach Wheeler, and he signed a huge contract with the Tampa Bay Rays by their standards. It may not look huge, but you're looking at 3 years, $40 million for Zach Eflin, the biggest free agent contract in the history of the Tampa Bay Rays organization. So good for Zach Eflin. He got paid. Taijuan Walker is probably the better option of the two, though. You're paying him like he's the better option of the two. His annual value is about $5 million more than what Zach Eflin's making on his new deal with the Rays. And basically, like, we know Taijuan Walker's a good pitcher, right? We saw him with the Mets. We've seen him close up. 30, he's going to be turning 31 over the course of this next MLB season. So you've got him committed until he's 34, turning 35, I guess it would be. Yeah, I'm not a big math guy. I believe that's right. You got him for 4 years. And for pitchers, 29 to about 33, 34 is probably their peak. It's a little bit later than you naturally assume with athletes, because if you think football, you're like, oh, over 30, you're kind of over the hill unless you're a quarterback. Basketball, over 30, you're kind of over the hill. Especially if you're a big man. Hockey's players play forever. But baseball, especially baseball pitchers, as long as they don't have significant injury history, you can pitch pretty well prime-wise until you're like 33, 34. So no issues with the age there or anything like that. And speaking of injuries, it's kind of why Taijuan Walker is the better option. So 1 and 2 in your rotation, you want guys with high floor and high ceilings. You want ace level guys, Aaron Nolas, Zach Wheelers, guys like that. Number 3 in the rotation, it'd be nice to have another one of those guys. Now, I think Ranger Suarez is a above average floor with a number 2 level starting pitcher ceiling. Like, that's how good he can be when he's at his best. That's a great guy to have at 3. But when you get down to 4 and then 5, those later spots in the rotation, especially on a contender, to me, it's more important for those pitchers to have a high floor than a super high ceiling, because you don't need them to come out and strike 12 guys out. That's just not what you need from the fourth starting pitcher in a rotation that also has Wheeler, Nola, and Suarez. Taijuan Walker just simply has a higher floor than Zach Eflin. Got a better career ERA, better career whip, strikes out at about the same rate. Batters, he walks a couple more per 9, but it's not a huge deal when the ERA and the whip are down, so he's given less opportunities to score. And the other thing is he doesn't have the injury history that Zach Eflin has. So what that means to me is you're going to get more consistently good pitching from Taijuan Walker simply because he'll be healthier than what you got from Zach Eflin. I think Eflin's ceiling might be higher than Taijuan Walker, but Taijuan Walker is going to be more consistently good, and that's something that you look for at the back end of a rotation. You don't need elite stuff back there. And not that Taijuan Walker doesn't have it. He has really, really good stuff. And you've seen it for the Philadelphia Phillies in the division against the New York Mets over the past couple seasons. I'm not saying he doesn't have that elite level stuff. I'm saying Eflin's might be better when they're both at their best, but when they're both at their worst, Taijuan Walker is certainly more reliable because he doesn't have, again, the injury history that Zach Eflin has. So that's why I think this is a really great signing and an upgrade over that. And really, this isn't even necessarily an upgrade over Zach Eflin because once Eflin got hurt, your fourth starter was Kyle Gibson. Taijuan Walker is better than what you got out of Kyle Gibson last year. And last year, that was good enough to get you in position to go to the World Series. So, a great addition for the Philadelphia Phillies in the starting rotation. And based on the values that some other pitchers have gotten this offseason, mainly we're looking at Eflin, we're looking at Jacob deGrom, who got a huge deal with the Texas Rangers, not an overpay. It may seem like stupid money when you add it all up and you say, okay, 72 to Taijuan Walker, 300 million to Trey Turner, another 15 million to Matt Strahm, who we're going to talk about in a second coming out of the bullpen. But I don't think any of those are bad contracts, and I think they fill needs for the Philadelphia Phillies. So good work on Taijuan Walker. Very excited for him to be here. Now let's talk a little bit of Matt Strahm, the long, curly-haired reliever out of Boston, and previously before Boston, San Diego, and previously before San Diego, the Kansas City Royals. Strahm's interesting, right? He's a lefty relief pitcher, kind of like a sidewinder almost. He has a lot of heavy rotation. He's one of those like lanky. I feel like Boston produces them like crazy, even though he's not a Boston product. He just played for them last year. But just those lanky kind of whip creating guys that throw sort of from the 3/4 arm slot, like out here. But he's got good stuff. Sub 4 ERA out of the pen last year for Boston. He's going to be your replacement for Brad Hand as one of your lefty specialist relievers. And he's slightly better than Brad Hand numbers wise. I think he will be slightly better than Brad Hand in employment. Hopefully, he doesn't have the injury issues that Brad Hand had. He seems relatively healthy over the course of his career. And something that's really intriguing to me about Matt Strahm is back in, it was either 2018 or 2019, he was a starter for the San Diego Padres. He made a couple starts. He threw like 114 innings or something. So this is a guy that you can let loose. He could throw 2 innings. He could throw 3 innings in long relief. And that's really, really good. To have a guy that has that type of durability in his arm means that you're probably looking at a safer bet. He's not ending up with an injury over the course of a reliever season, which for top relievers is like 40 to 55 innings. So that's another nice little thing that Strahm is versatile out of the pen. He doesn't just have to be a lefty guy. He could be a long relief guy if a starter gets into trouble because he has started in the past. He won't be making any spot starts for the Phillies because you have too many guys that could fill out the rest of that rotation. Talking about you're looking at Christopher Sanchez, you're looking at Bailey Falter, you're looking at Andrew Painter. So many options for the Philadelphia Phillies to employ there. They might even go get another veteran. Who knows? We'll talk about that in a second when we get into what Jayson Stark said on his podcast. But yeah, I love the Matt Strahm edition. Better than Brad Hand? Yes. Taijuan Walker edition. Better than Kyle Gibson and better than Zach Eflin at their floor? Yes. Trey Turner, better than what you had at shortstop last year in Bryson Stott or Gene Segura or Didi Gregorius, however you slice it? Yes. The Philadelphia Phillies have improved on 3 positions already, and it's only, what is it, December 8th? Yeah, they've been getting after it. So kudos to Dave Dombrowski, John Middleton for shelling out the money, for Rob Thompson and Bryce Harper for recruiting. It's been a great offseason for the Philadelphia Phillies so far. And from the sound of what I'm about to tell you about Jayson Stark coming up next and what he said, well, they might just be getting started. Interesting, because I didn't think they'd be this aggressive, but we'll discuss what he had to say and how much stock to put into it coming up next as we continue Locked On Phillies. All right, I want to tell you about my friends over at BetOnline first up because betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. You got football, You got basketball, you got soccer, you got esports. They've got it all at BetOnline as well. And we're always the fast and easiest, or rather, I should say, they're always the fast and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Oh, by the way, if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline too. So go to BetOnline, check them out. BetOnline is indeed where the game starts. Okay, so let's talk a little Jayson Stark. If you're not familiar with Jayson Stark, Hall of Fame baseball writer, originally out of here in Philadelphia, but one of the great writers in the game today. I had the pleasure to talk to him a couple times on 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. Maybe someday in the future we'll get a chance to have him on here, depending on how big, of course, Locked On Phillies gets. I'm trying to continue to grow this, and with your help, rating, reviewing, and subscribing, we will get there. But Jayson Stark, a guy I've talked to a bunch of times, great guy, extremely intelligent. I put him up there in the stratosphere with Tim Kirkchin and Buster Olney as some of the great baseball minds on the planet today. One of the greats currently alive in breaking down the game, for my money. And he has his own podcast called the Starkville Podcast. I hear it's all right. It's no Locked On Phillies. You don't get what Connor Thomas brings you over on that Starkville podcast. But Jayson Stark was talking about the Phillies and the luxury tax threshold. Now, despite those three signings, Trey Turner, 300 mil, Taijuan Walker, 72 mil, Matt Strahm, 15 mil over 2 seasons, by the way. I didn't tell you the contract before when we were talking about him. The Phillies are not yet over that luxury tax threshold. They still got some room to go before they clear everything else. Well, according to the Starkville podcast, here's what Jayson Stark thinks about that. He said they have signed stars, game-changing stars, and right now it looks like they're going to blow through that $253 million second luxury tax threshold. Just get the sense that they don't really care about the money. Wow. You hear that? They don't really care about the money. Now, I know John Middleton said that they're going to spend money and might even be a bit stupid with it back in November of 2018. And now, 4 years later, over 4 years later, it seems like they're very much living up to that. And that being said, Dave Dombrowski had said in his post-season media availability, his end-of-year review, that he hopes to not be over the luxury tax. But we'll see what happens. And to me, that was always it'd be nice if we could, but I know realistically to take this team where we want it to go, we're probably going to have to go over the luxury tax. And then you get Turner for $27 million a year, and Taijuan Walker for $18 a year, and Matt Strahm for what's 15 divided 7.5 a year. And it's lower AAVs than I thought you're going to have to spend to fill out those positions. And now, if what he's saying is correct, what Jayson Stark is saying is correct, there could be some more big signings on the way. I don't think it's another big starting pitcher. But could they look at the young pitchers they have and say, we like the options, but it'd be better if we could go out and get another guy like, I don't know, maybe Noah Syndergaard coming back or something like that to re-sign him, or get another low-value starting veteran pitcher to take that fifth spot in the rotation? Maybe. Could it be that they're looking at a high-profile closer? Possible. Could it be that they're looking at a couple options in the bullpen that add up to going over the luxury tax? There's some more higher profile relievers. That's also an option. Now, keep in mind, I still think they do have to add a corner outfielder as a depth piece, because with Bryce Harper on the injured list for a while because of Tommy John surgery, and Schwarber and Castellanos not the most mobile guys out there in the corners. Matt Vierling is already kind of in a platoon in center field with Brandon Marsh, and he can obviously play in the corners. But I think there's someone that out there that the Phillies would rather have as another outfield option than putting Nick Maton out in the corners if anything happens injury-wise or however it works out with those other guys. I think the Phillies would be interested in bringing another player in who's an upgrade over Nick Maton for that, I guess, what would it be, the fifth outfielder on the team, maybe another utility infielder, but there's going to be a fringe position player as well that gets brought in, so who knows how much money that affects depending on how expensive the Phillies want to go there. It seems like Jayson Stark thinks the Phillies are not done yet, though, which is weird because I get the impression from the moves that they've made that the big signings the Phillies are going to have are already out of the way. They've already thrown the big money at the big players, and now it'll be like, oh, a $4 million bullpen contract here, a $5 million bullpen contract here, a $2.5 million bullpen contract here. So nothing like crazy. A $3.5 million corner outfield veteran guy somewhere. So I don't know, but maybe Jayson Stark is hearing something. So just a tidbit there that says keep your ear to the ground. Keep an eye on the hot stove for Philadelphia Phillies fans. It may not be the lull that we thought we were getting once they signed the starter they wanted and they signed the shortstop they wanted and they add a bullpen piece that clearly they were most interested in. So if Jayson Stark is right, and a lot of times he is, that would mean some other big signings coming for the Philadelphia Phillies. Even if he's not, though, that's a comforting thing to hear when it comes to John Middleton. And we already kind of knew it, right? We already knew he's spending money. There were no questions about that in my mind, or I think the minds of the fans, once you make these big signings over this past week. But to hear it said again that you get the sense, a national baseball writer gets the sense that they don't really care about the money. That puts you in the stratosphere with like those early 2000s Yankees, the Dodgers of a couple of years lately, the Astros, guys that go out and are willing to spend money to compete for championships. There aren't that many teams in baseball that are willing to do it. Some teams get it done by homegrown talent. The Phillies, because of Matt Klentak and the couple years that he was in charge and had issues with the farm system, they don't have that luxury. So now they have to go into the luxury tax, oddly enough and ironically enough. But they're very willing to do that clearly already. And it seems that they're willing to do that even further. And that's for this offseason. But hey, this championship window is not just 2023. 2024 and 25 and 26 should all be championship contentions for the Philadelphia Phillies. And the fact that John Middleton is throwing his money around means he knows the fans are going to support him, means they made good money in that playoff run with everyone selling out the bank. So good work by us, the fans. And it also means that he's committed to winning. If it's not this year, maybe he'll go into the second luxury tax threshold next year. Maybe it'll be 3 years from now. But Jayson Stark and what he's saying says that John Middleton ain't scared to go ahead and throw that cash around a little bit. And I absolutely love it. It's music to my ears. It's not my money to spend. There is no salary cap. Go ahead and spend that money. And if you're willing to eat the luxury tax to give us a championship in Philadelphia, man, well, we'll throw you in one heck of a parade. So that's just a fun little tidbit as well about where the Phillies mindset might be. And this is Jayson Stark who's getting the sense of stuff. I don't know exactly what he's hearing or if he's just judging on some demeanor from people he's talked to or the past signings by the Philadelphia Phillies. But a fun little interesting tidbit from a great writer who knows what he's talking about, who thinks the Phillies are not necessarily done yet. Well, that is a fun report. Those were a fun couple of signings. What do you say we wrap up the show with something fun? 2 advent calendars today because, well, yesterday with the issues, technical difficulty wise, didn't get a chance to do it. So we'll have 2 advent calendars today, and I'll also reveal the answer for what's today. So today's Thursday. Didn't do it Wednesday. For Tuesday's advent calendar clue. All right, we'll discuss all that coming up next as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. All right, so Tuesday we had. The clue was in 2012, there was an outfielder that the Phillies signed, batted .307 for him that year, and ended up, he was looking to join a team that he thought was capable, and obviously they didn't do it, but capable of getting him another World Series because he had won one with the Marlins earlier in his career. And of course, that is everyone's favorite Philly, Juan Pierre. Actually, I did love Juan Pierre. Hit the ball like crazy. Thought he was a really fun player to watch play the game. Played the game the right way. Really easy guy to root for. Nice dude. I really liked Juan Pierre. So that was your advent calendar player for a couple days ago. Now, I had one that was a little bit more throwback, but now that we're doing 2 at once, I want to go ahead and make this a little bit easy for you. Okay. This is going to be a little bit opinionated, so you're going to have to figure it out. But I think this is a very easy one. They combined for one of the most balanced, and I think it's actually, before I get into it, I think it's very fitting considering the signing that the Phillies made this week, the combination that they've created, and the youth of that, because we're heading into an era where, who knows, maybe this will be the new these guys. But they combined, for my money, to be the best double play combination in the middle in the history of Philadelphia Phillies baseball. They had an nearly unparalleled stretch of success because there were some other really good stretches in Philadelphia Phillies history. But the run that they went on together with a couple other pieces, one big one, it was awesome. It led to a world championship. It led to a National League pennant in year following that. And just for my money, they're two of my favorite Phillies of all time, but the best double play combination in the history of Philadelphia Phillies baseball. I know you guys know who it is, but go ahead and indulge me and put the names in the chats anyway. If we're doing two guys together, what two guys better to be tied together than those two? Get at me in the comments. I'll reveal both of them tomorrow on Friday's episode, and I'll go ahead and post the updated advent calendar with Juan Pierre sticking his head out today. So that's the Phillies advent calendar, and that's all for today's Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now make your second listen Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today is the breaking news from around the sports world: baseball, basketball, football, soccer, all that good stuff. Hockey. Why did I not say hockey? Sorry to my folks, the puck heads out there, but they've got everything. Check them out wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, the Odyssey app, all that good stuff, all the places you can find Locked On Phillies. You can find Locked On Sports Today. So check them out. They do great work. I want to thank you again for joining us on Locked On Phillies today. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing on the YouTube, doing all that good stuff. I appreciate the continued support, and we will continue to support you with the latest in breaking Phillies news, different commentary on the signings, everything they do this offseason, and plenty of thoughts about what's to come for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2023. We'll continue to discuss that on future episodes, but for today, that's all for Locked On Phillies.